All right. So hello, everybody. Welcome to FLIA Living Take Two. I say take two because I did hold a class. I scheduled it as a class in Facebook, never having done that before, and then it didn't record. And so I figured take two because we're going to do it again. But I'm going to, just so everybody knows, I will be doing something around the topic of FLIA, and fun-loving intentional adventure is what FLIA stands for. It's something, and you may have heard this or you may have read this if you've seen some of the stuff I've been posting about. Fun-loving intentional adventure is something Kelly and I came up with 8 years ago when we first met, because when we met and she expressed interest in me, I was like, I'm not dating, I'm not doing relationships, I'm not getting married ever again. I'm not interested in any of that. I was really clear. But then, I recognized that there was something special. And so I said, if we're going to do this, I don't want to call it, I don't want to use the language everybody uses when they meet somebody. I don't want to talk about dating and relationship because there's baggage with it. There's history with it. And what I've found in my own experience was that what I mean by saying I'm in a relationship and what others mean can be very different. But we don't recognize necessarily that it's different because we all think we know what it means. And I wanted to be really clear with Kelly what we were creating. And what we were building together. So we came up with these words: fun-loving, intentional adventure. Well, I'm happy to say it'll be 8 years that we've been together. This fall, it'll be 8 years. And we celebrate our 4th wedding anniversary next Thursday. Things that I never saw for my future. I thought I was going to be one of those people that was not necessarily single, but, be in a relationship for a few years and then move on, be alone for a while and then maybe meet somebody. But I never saw myself happily married, certainly not long term. So why FLIA is coming up now is because last year I was like, FLIA works so well for our relationship. Why aren't we doing it in other parts of our life? And so I've been applying it to my health. I've been applying it to my business, finances. I had somebody the other day say, we're going to do a FLIA wedding because they've heard, how fabulous Kelly and our wedding was. So it's just been interesting, but it's been good. It's changed a lot of things for both of us. And so one of the things that we're going to focus on tonight is FLIA health. So being fun, loving, and intentional, and looking at our health, especially health when we're looking at healing, as an adventure, and how we can find that balance between what we do now, is there action for us to take, or is it time to rest? Is it time to dive in and lean in and go deeper, or is it time to play? And how do we figure that out? And we're going to do that tonight with a conversation and some actual healing with Tanya. And that's the way we're going to approach this tonight. Now, I'm excited about this for a few reasons. There's so much in our culture that says healing has to be hard, that healing has to be like a grind, that healing takes a long time, and that it has to be painful, and and it hurts, and of course emotional. And while excuse me, while it can be all of those things, I don't believe it has to be. And that's what we're going to look at tonight. Of course, as always, this is safe space. This is non-judgmental space. This is loving space, a space for us to be who we are in this moment, whatever that might be. Emotions are welcome and encouraged. as are questions. Nothing's off limits. I typically show at this point, that I have a box of tissues. I have one left because it's not unusual for me to get emotional at times as stuff comes up and out. But I invite people to give themselves permission to be emotional if it does happen, because as I said to somebody earlier, better out than in. When we allow it to come out, if it comes up, it's the easiest time to allow it to come out. If we stuff it back down, it tends to come out, in my experience, and in a lot of my clients, it tends to come out at a time that we least expect it and least want it. So, as I mentioned before, questions are welcome. While I'm talking, certainly if I'm talking to somebody else, if you have a question, feel free to post it in the chat, because I will check that periodically. And while most of my conversation, I expect most of my conversation tonight will happen directly with Tanya, know that if you're listening to this, whether you're listening as a live or a replay, it's not a coincidence. And I suspect there are things that we share or that we'll address in some way that apply to you. And I see Ruth Ann smiling, because my guess is she agrees with that statement, having joined things like this with me in the past. I know I often leave the same thing, like going, oh, I said that to so-and-so, but I needed to hear it. Or something that they, something that somebody else said that I was like, oh, like I didn't see it in myself, but with them sharing, it's like, oh yeah, that definitely applies to me too. So thank you, Ruth Ann, thank you, Tanya, and thank you for those who join at a later time or listen to the replay. All right, so with that said, any questions before we get started? Okay, so I'm going to, I was sharing this with Tanya earlier, because she's like, how do I prepare for this? Which is so strange in a way, because to become a doctor of chiropractic and to do so much that I've done in life, I would prepare, like down to like the tiniest details. Like I would be like so prepared. And one of the things that I love about FLIA and love about tapping into and trusting intuition and psychic guidance, which I believe that we all have, yes, in various forms. It doesn't always look the same for each of us, but I believe we all have these abilities. But by tapping into that, often what I get as a message is show up. That's the most important piece, is show up. Because who and what we need in the moment can often change from moment to moment. So of course I could plan and prepare all I want, but if I really want healing to meet us where we are in this moment, I need to show up and pay attention in this moment. So that's one of the reasons why at this point I very rarely prepare outside of scheduling the time and blocking it out in my calendar. So I'm going to now tune in and see where we're going to get started. All right. All right. So we are going to start looking at agreements, what I used to refer to as beliefs. I changed it to agreements because I wanted to be in alignment with the 4 Agreements, the book, which I reread every year. And I didn't want there to be confusion because essentially, in my opinion, they mean the same thing. They're interchangeable. So we're going to start off with agreements, and let's see which ones we're going to start off with. All right, so I'm going to ask you to repeat after me, either out loud or to yourself. I am safe.
I am safe.
Okay.
I am safe.
And the information I'm receiving is we're out of alignment with that, that there's something getting in the way of our whole body and our whole being feeling that. So some of the work that we're going to do right now with agreements is to establish a foundation. So that way we can receive more of what's being like offered to us, more of what we're in a space to be able to receive tonight. So that's the reason for doing agreements first, is to establish that foundation so we have more to build from. And by bringing things into alignment, which is what we're going to do with these agreements, then our energy is more fine-tuned and focused. In this case, for instance, with this agreement, to I am safe, versus part of us going, oh no, I don't feel safe, and another part going, well, yes, we are. And you get that push-pull energy within us. So we're going to do, we're going to bring these things into alignment first. Part of being here tonight, part of listening, for those who listen later, is just receive. There is not anything for you to do other than breathe. So I'm going to bring that agreement into alignment for us. All right, and if you'd repeat after me, I am safe.
I am safe.
Okay, and I'm told that that's now in alignment. Let's see if there are others for us to address. Yes. Okay, and if you could repeat after me, I am secure.
I am secure.
Okay, and I'm going to bring that into alignment. Okay, and if you could repeat again, I am secure.
I am secure.
Okay, I get that that's now in alignment. The next agreement. I love myself unconditionally as I am.
I love myself unconditionally as I am.
Okay, I'm going to bring that into alignment. I love myself unconditionally as I am.
I love myself unconditionally as I am.
Okay, I get that that's now in alignment. And I'm being asked to share. Your mind might be going, yeah, right. And this is when I, talk to the hand. Do you remember that from like the 1990s? Talk to the hand. This is when I tell the mind, like, back off. This is not for the mind to get into. The mind is not in control here. We're tapping into who we are as a whole being. Our mind is not in control. So our mind can butt out tonight. All right, the next agreement. I love myself unconditionally as I grow and change.
Oh, I love myself unconditionally as I grow and change.
Okay, I'm going to bring that into alignment. I love myself unconditionally as I grow and change.
I love myself unconditionally as I grow and change.
Okay, I get that that's now in alignment for us. I forgive myself.
Whoa. I forgive myself.
Okay, I'm going to bring that into alignment. I forgive myself.
I forgive myself.
Okay, that's now in alignment. The next one, I am worthy because I am.
I am worthy because I am.
Okay, I'm going to bring that into alignment. I am worthy because I am.
I am worthy because I am.
Okay, that's now in alignment. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to clear out some emotions. Often we have emotions that get, I'll say, stuck, stagnant. Some things from our childhood, some things passed down from our ancestors or from past lives, things that are taking up space. I love when emotions come up like this because we can tend to clear out and make some room without having to like muck it all up and talk about it and dive into it. We can clear out some energetic space pretty easily. So let's see which ones are coming up. All right. So the emotion that is coming up is indignant. And I just want to look this up. Again, all right, feeling or showing anger or annoyance is what, I can't talk tonight. Feeling or showing anger or annoyance at what is perceived as unfair treatment. So that's indignant. So let me see, is there more to know? No, so we're gonna clear out that emotion. Now, one of the benefits, and I know some of you have heard this before, one of the benefits of clearing out emotions like this is often when it comes to emotions, like there's times that we can almost like connect dots at different points throughout our life and we can see patterns and themes. And so we tend to be pretty sensitive when they come up again, which my saying is if we're triggered, if we get defensive, if we get upset, it's because there's something that's ready to heal. So one of the benefits of clearing emotions like this is where we start that healing. And because we're healing around this emotion and what causes this emotion to be triggered, then we're less sensitive to things occurring in the future that will trigger us again. So I'm going to clear that emotion now. Okay, other emotions, yes. Okay, the next emotion that's popping up is heavy-hearted.
Yeah.
Let me see, is there more to know? No. Okay, so I'm gonna clear this out as well. Are there other emotions to address? Yes. All right, the next emotion that's popping up is confusion. Okay, so I'm getting that with this emotion, that this emotion is actually something that was passed down from our ancestors. And that's, I think, an important thing to note, that sometimes when we're looking at things in our life that, do you ever feel like you look at parts of your life and go, like, I don't know where this came from, but like it doesn't feel like mine.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't get it. And like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I say that because sometimes the reason it doesn't make sense is because it is not ours, or it's not ours from this lifetime. So I'm getting that this comes from our ancestors. And much like our genetics, we can get passed down, it, hair color, eye color, build, illness or disease, things that can get passed down like that. Emotions can get passed down as well. So I'm going to clear out this confusion. All right, are there other emotions to address at this time? No. All right, so I am being nudged with a question. And the question is why is what we're doing tonight different than what we've done in the past? I prefaced all of this tonight talking about FLIA and talking about healing in the framework of FLIA, the fun, loving, intentional adventure. And yet what we've done so far tonight is very similar to groups in the past. So why is tonight different? and I'm being asked to share this, that one of the reasons tonight is different is because as we move forward with this, and because an intention was set that we were going to frame this healing within FLIA, that essentially we've chosen or called in energy that's fun, energy that's loving, intentional, and as an adventure. That while it may not seem all that amazing right now, that we will start to see where we've got choices. Because much like we can choose to see a medical doctor for something we've experienced, or a therapist versus a chiropractor or acupuncture, or like myself, an intuitive, we've got choices on what energy we choose to show up in. And that even when things, for instance, are hard, or even when they feel like a grind, or they are painful, if we look through a lens of fun, of loving, of being intentional, of seeing an adventure in it, the view is going to be different than, it's like, oh, fuck, here we go again. Like, oh, I'm so tired of being in pain. I'm so tired of this happening again. When is this going to be done? And I don't know about you, for those who are listening right now, I know for me, even just saying it, when I was talking about fun, loving, intentional adventure, like I can feel the grin on my face and I'm like up. And as I was saying, like, oh, I've got to do this. I could literally feel like my energy go and feel a weight behind it. And that is, that's how we want to shift things tonight, is recognizing that we do have a choice about this. And by framing it around FLIA, and FLIA is, again, the words that Kelly and I chose years ago, and we spent weeks choosing these words. And at different times, and even when we got married, we talked about, like, do we have to update them? And so we've had multiple conversations. Because some people choose the word of the year, for instance. And we recognize that that we always want more fun, that we always want love. An adventure, I looked up the definition. It's basically doing new things that are exciting. And so even in the scheme of every day, the routine of every day, like, how can we keep things fresh and new? And again, that's the same thing with healing, especially when it seems like we've been there, done that. And how come it hasn't worked? By showing up with this perspective, it can show us other possibilities and provide us with other opportunities that we would not have seen otherwise. All right, I'm just going to tune in and see if there's anything else I'm being asked to share. No. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. If something pops up, post it in the comments and we'll get back to that. So, all right. So Tanya, I'm getting that now. I'm going to talk directly to you. When it comes to the healing, Tanya, that you've been, and I say the healing, how things have been showing up in your life that says, okay, there's more work to do. I know from what we have talked about and what you had been sharing on social media, that you had made a commitment to yourself, and of course, correct me if I'm portraying this wrong, but that you had made a commitment to yourself to take care of yourself and to take the time to heal some of the trauma that you've experienced in your past. With that being said, what what question would you want answered tonight? Like if you said like, oh, if there's something that I could learn or discover tonight, what would that be?
It would be how to take everything in bite-sized pieces so that I'm not doing these big things, because the problems that I have to heal are not, they're not tiny, and they're definitely accumulative. And I do believe there's ancestral trauma in there as well. But these are things that keep popping up when I think I've dealt them. I've done the Reiki, I've done the thing, I've done the this, and then all of a sudden the next thing comes up, and all of this pressure from behind is there, and it's like a very loud reaction to something that should have been thinner or quieter. Very loud reaction. So it's like, okay, well, I haven't let go of all those things, obviously.
Okay.
And then there's a lot of the rage in behind it that, you know, like when you were saying that definition, I'm like, yeah, I am pissed at the unfairness of it. So what I need to do, I use avoidance with some of these bigger things. So I just don't deal with them at all. So as soon as a small little trickle comes in, I completely drop it 100%. And then I'm like, oh, I'm good. I'm happy because I'm avoiding the issue as opposed to working through it. So my question out of all of this is how to maintain my level of happiness when these things come up, so that I can start taking bites out of them so they quit being so loud.
Okay.
You know, I quit having these responses to what should be small things.
Okay. So and thank you, Tanya, for doing this. One, I know it takes courage to be vulnerable. I know it takes tremendous courage to commit to our healing, no matter where we are in the process for that. Because it is so easy to just avoid it all. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, sometimes I'm like, I said it, Kelly, and I probably said it to anybody else who's listened to some of the things that I've shared. Like sometimes I'm like, can I just have the weekend off? Like, I just want to be ignorant for the weekend. I just want to break from recognizing that I have choice and I have power, and I, you know, there's all these things available to me. Because sometimes I think, you know, life was easier when I was ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, you know, life does keep getting better as I heal. So one of the first things that wants to be said is healing will, you know, the way our society kind of portrays things, it's, you know, is to get to a place like that, we're done. And it's like, oh, and now we're good. And so part of what wants to be shared is like, that doesn't exist. When healing is done is frankly when we're dead. At least healing in this lifetime is done when we're dead. That if we're not healing or moving through things, then yeah, we're not really living a life, or literally we're dead. So that's one of the first things. One of the other things that wants to be highlighted, and I know I frequently have to remind myself of this too, you know, in shamanic circles, the joke is, didn't we burn that shit already? Or I know I've burnt that like 100 times and here it comes again, you know?
Yeah.
So one of the things that, you know, I talk about things coming back around, like here we go again. And I put it out there and as an invitation and a reminder that it doesn't come, we don't go around in circles. It feels like we go around in circles. We've talked about things like we go around in circles, but I want you to view it as if it's actually a spiral, like a spiral staircase, something that we move up. That yes, when we come back around, for instance, as we move up a spiral staircase, you know, what we see off the left side is going to be similar from when we're on the first stair to the 10th stair to the 50th stair, especially like if it's an open staircase. But our perception of what we see on the left side versus the right side and is going to be different. And that's important because it's not the same. The situation's not the same. We're not the same. What's available to us is not the same. The other thing that wants to be shared as far as the spiral. So part of that is to recognize and not allow your mind to tell you, oh, obviously what you've done before didn't work. No, that's bullshit. Again, that's why I said earlier, the mind comes in and starts telling you this stuff. It's like, no, like not for you tonight. Like you're out of here. Because our mind is part of our nervous system that wants to keep us safe. Safe is what's known. When we heal and move through things, we open up possibilities that we can step into, that we can choose. And it's unknown. So our nervous system is going to start throwing up things like, oh, here we go again. This didn't work. Because it wants you to stop. It wants you to slow down. It wants you to back up. It doesn't want you going forward in the unknown. So that's the first thing about the spiral. What you have done in the past, the efforts that you've taken, the steps that you've taken, the actions that you've taken have led to change. They absolutely have. Now, another key piece about this is when you feel like something is coming back around, I want you to stop and ask yourself some questions. Where has my progress occurred? What progress have I made? Because there absolutely has been progress. And the progress might be, oh, it didn't take me months to recognize this pattern. It took me a couple of days or even a couple of hours or minutes versus, some of the first patterns that I recognized needed to be healed. It took me like decades to recognize. And now the time frame gets smaller and smaller. So it's an opportunity to celebrate yourself and acknowledge that level of healing versus, fuck, here we go again. And going like, I don't want to do this again. So I'm not, which gets us to do the avoidance that you mentioned, Tanya. But if we recognize that like, oh, wow, like there's been progress, we can feel better about, well, I've come this far. Kelly and I, we view our fights as like markers for progress because we know that one, when we fight, it's because there's something that's ready to heal. Even if it's coming up again, it's like, okay, here it comes again. So where is our progress? Where is there still some things to look at? And what have we discovered about ourselves? And so even though, like, I'm not like, oh, yay, let's fight. Or, here, we're fighting again, because while it's happening, it can suck ass. But then it's like, we take some time, we take some space. And when we come back and look at it, it's like, oh, wow, look, I recognize this. And even though we fought again, I noticed this about me. I noticed that about me. And that we didn't do this again. So again, yay for us. The other question to ask is there anything for me to do at this time? Because sometimes the work is done, but our culture and our society has passed down beliefs or agreements that only hard work pays off.
Yeah.
And that we're meant to be productive members of society. And we've got to solve problems, which has us focused on those things. So sometimes, for instance, I know for myself, but certainly when I'm working with clients at times, you know, something comes back around, they come in and they go, oh, here we go again. And I'm like, oh, is it here we go again? Or is it, oh, here's an opportunity to ask some questions. And one of those questions is there any action for me to take at this time? Because I find in so many cases, it's one, the nervous system recognizing that you're about to move through into this whole new realm of possibilities, which again, nervous system's not thrilled about because that's unknown. So it wants you to get back in that cycle. It's the mind's way of believing that history is going to keep repeating itself.
Yeah.
Well, if I believe history was going to keep repeating itself, I wouldn't be married. I certainly wouldn't be about to celebrate 4 years after being together happily for 8. Because my history with relationships was not great. I had one failed marriage and who knows how many failed relationships. So history does change, but part of it is because we recognize how we've changed. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So part of that message is, and I'm going to speak directly to you, Tanya, because you were sharing your story, is, and I say your story, and I don't in any way want to diminish what you or any of us have experienced and the impact, the trauma that has contributed to our life. At the same time, our mind is really good at telling us stories that have us piling more weight to those experiences.
Yep.
Our nervous system becomes really efficient at them. The more we tell ourselves these things, the more that we're triggered about things, we become more and more efficient at it. So I mentioned that because biologically, physiologically, I mean, it takes more effort, at least initially, to start changing those patterns. Okay, let me see. All right, so I'm being asked to say, or ask, so how do we make this fun? You know, like we come back around and it's like, all right, so how can we make it fun? Well, let me see if I'm getting. Okay, so let's play, I'll say we'll kind of play a game. I want us to imagine, pick the pattern, pick the thing that seems to come up again. You know, for you, Tanya, the thing that has you wanting to go into avoidance, that thing that, you know, you feel all that rage behind you. Ruth Ann, pick a pattern for yourself. And I want you to imagine yourself like 3 months from now. So if we're in May, we're talking about the end of August. Imagine yourself at the end of August. And imagine you're going about your day and all of a sudden, like this thing comes up and it almost feels like smack in the face. Here we are again. How can we respond to that? Knowing what we know now, how can we respond to that in a way that feels more fun, more loving, feels lighter? How can we be intentional about that? Recognizing, you know, we've got an adventure coming, because when it comes down to it, we know we're going to have patterns. pop up and smack us in the face at some point in the future, whether it's this one that you're thinking of right now or another one. So let's prepare for it. Let's train for it. Much like you would train for, a 5K or something else. We train for those things, so we're prepared for them. So we want to train for this emotional, mental trigger that we know we're going to experience in the future. And we want to go in saying, okay, we want to create this experience. We want to show up for this experience so it's more fun, more loving, that we can be intentional around it. And we're like, okay, it's exciting and it's new and it's going to be an adventure versus, fuck, here we go again. Ruth Ann, I love your laugh. So in viewing 3 months from now, what can we do now to use fun? What can we, that can be loving? Outside of what we're doing right now, because, if you could see my laptop here, I've got sticky notes. So for me, and one of the sticky notes is FLIA, because even though I talk about FLIA now regularly, and even though I talk about checking in and intuition, and I've been talking about that for years, there are still days and times that I might get spiraling, and Kelly will be like, well, did you check in? And I'll be like, no, because I got so caught up in it. So I need reminders. So I have notes around my house about stuff. And that's one way I prepare, is I do reminders. And I do them in 2 ways. I do them with Post-it notes, and I do them with alarms set on my phone. My alarm goes off on my phone. Right now, my alarm goes off on my phone. I think it's 7 times a day, because I'm launching this FLIA conversation. I'm doing a lot with it. It requires me to step outside my comfort zone in a lot of different ways. So I feel stress wanting to come up. I feel fear wanting to come up, because I'm stepping outside my comfort zone. So I have more reminders right now, because I want to check in to make sure I'm doing okay more times throughout the day. So it's one of the ways that I'm certainly loving to myself, and it's one of the ways that I'm intentional with myself, is my sticky notes and my alarms on my phone. Because that's happening every day. When my alarm goes off right now, there's 3 things that happen. I do 3 to 5 deep breaths. I ask myself how I'm doing and what I need. And I check in to see how FLIA is. Am I still on track for, feeling the fun in the day, feeling the love for myself, being intentional, and experiencing the day as an adventure? So those are the 3 things that I do.
I try and come up with something that's as light as all that, especially with mine, because every time, and again, it's giving voice to more and more and more. So I'm struggling with coming up with a way of sitting with that.
And that's a great question, Tanya. And there's something that I'll say, FLIA is a practice, and we're on a spectrum. So where we are, to say light and fun, like with the way you're feeling it from me, might be too much of a stretch right now. FLIA is very unique and very personal to each of us. What FLIA looks like for me and what it looks like for you and Ruth Ann and anybody else is going to be different. So I want you to imagine yourself on the spectrum. That, yeah, maybe the lightness and the energy you're feeling from me right now is a goal to move toward. So the question for you is, what's going to move me in that direction? Now, one of the things I want to highlight, and it goes back to something you shared, you recognize there's a lot of rage happening when these things come up. So I invite you, if you're not already doing it, I invite you to give yourself time and space. And I'm going to just check in and see what else I'm getting with this.
Well, one of the things that's bothering me is that original, or the latest fella, he ended up messaging me back a few days later. Ruthann, what happened is I went on a Tinder date and we were just supposed to meet, and he thought I was coming over for a booty call, blah, 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 right? And so I was just instantly attacked, right? And I totally I'm like, oh, misunderstanding, ha ha ha, that's okay. And completely shut down, because that's my lot in life, not the first time. And I told him, I don't want to talk to you for a few days. I really need to process this, because it brought up everything from a previous rate, or a lot from a previous event. And then he messaged me 2 days later, because I was just never going to talk to him again. And he's like, oh, I saw your post and I didn't realize, wasn't my intention. Of course, they'll say that. And then he's like, I just don't think you're ready for a relationship. So two things happened. One, well, no, it was the big list. And so this is where the stacking happens. So instantly I'm like, want to be like, no, come back. It's okay. And then I want to, I was so mad at him, because it's like, you really think that I want to do that with you now that I know you're that kind of a creep? And then there was just so much. And then I actually laid into him a little bit instead of explaining it away, because I had processed some of it. And I'm like, you had no right. There was no sexy talk. There was no innuendos. The worst thing in our conversation for the couple of weeks before was giggity. Like, that's what I typed, giggity, right? Like, that's nothing. There was no expectation. So then I raged on him, and then I blocked his number and deleted him. And now not only do I have the remnants, but I feel guilty, because I'm sure he's a really nice guy, and maybe I shouldn't have raged so much on him. So I feel guilty because I gave him that anger, and maybe not all of it was his. And now, like, part of me wants to go through and find his number and message him and apologize, because how unfair is it for me to put my trauma on somebody else? And so having to process that is doubly bad.
Thank you. Thank you. And
Thank you.
one of the things that I'll say about FLIA is, yes, can we look at things through a lens of fun? Yes. And can it make something that's hard easier at times? Yes. And at the same time, how do I say this? We don't have everything all at the same time.
No.
So I say it that way because in this situation, that what stands out for me, the two areas I'd focus on is, how can I be loving to myself? And how can I be intentional around that? Because yes, with what you're talking about, again, that push-pull energy, and I know when I was talking about that at the beginning of the night, I could see you smiling about that, going, oh yeah, I recognize that in myself. I do too. It's one of the reasons I talk about it, is because I recognize it myself. Of course, my clients and my patients talk about it all the time, because it's like, oh, this and oh, that. And, I feel like both can't be happening at the same time, because it's like almost like the opposite. And that's where our mind comes in, and where it's like, mind, back the fuck off. So in this case, what I would be asking yourself is, how can I be loving to myself in this? And I often, when I communicate with myself, I often talk to myself as if I'm talking to my best friend. Because we tend to be kinder to our best friends. We tend to be more loving and more supportive to our best friends, less critical and judgmental than we are of ourselves. So in this case, Tanya, if you were your best friend, how would you support your best friend in a situation like this?
Well, I'd probably respond the same as Christy said, which is, fuck that guy. He deserves to feel a little uncomfortable over it. And
Okay.
that was her response.
Yeah. You know, because when it comes down to it, people come into our, I do believe this, people come into our lives for us to recognize things with ourselves, to give ourselves opportunities to discover about ourselves. And in this case, to give ourselves an opportunity to let that rage out.
Mhm.
Now, but now that it's happened, I suspect there's still more anger there. There's still more rage there. So how can you give yourself permission to let that out? Because what I'm getting when I tune in for you, I'm getting that it would be beneficial for you to basically rage every day. And it can be something that's happening now. It can be something that, you know, if you think about it from your childhood or from, you know, your previous experiences, you know, yeah, you know, and you can, and the way I'm receiving it, you know, if you look back to your childhood, you know, is something, let me ask you this first. Does something come to your awareness where you would have been angry around the age of 5?
Nothing's up front. I have one of those memories that's got like everything blocked.
Okay.
I get flashbacks at an appropriate time. That's
Okay.
fun.
So what I'm getting, let me see. And you might want to write this down. 5 years old, 13, 19,
You're turning it. That's me.
28, how old are you, Tanya?
42.
Okay, so I'm also getting 30, 36. Okay, and then I'm getting now. I say these ages because what I'm getting is, and what is being recommended is take some time in the next, and I'm getting weeks. And at first it may feel like a lot, but like a pressure cooker, you know, of course, when we first let the pressure out, it's like lots of pressure, you know, just like a dam, you know, you first open the dam and water comes pouring out and then it gets less and less until it's a trickle. So it may feel like a lot, but as you move through it, it'll get less and less. And, you know, I noticed earlier, Ruth Ann had posted in the comments, you know, clearing creates fresh space for FLIA. And that's exactly it. This will create that space for that lightness of energy, for that fun, for that happiness that you know is available to you, but you're struggling to hold on to. The space will open up.
Yeah.
So those ages that I gave you are ages of yourself that, you know, I mean, not for nothing. Something happens every year to piss us off. You know, I mean, at some point in the year, something's going to piss us off. I mean, I say in a year, but I mean, probably every month, maybe even every week, but certainly every year, there's something that pisses us off. But what I'm getting as far as the ages I shared with you is those are like key times within yourself for anger that give yourself at those ages the opportunity to rage. So like for the 6-year-old self, I might start off journaling to say, okay, 6-year-old me, like, what do you want me to know? And then just write and see what comes up. But then give your 6-year-old time to throw a tantrum. And if you see me do it, I jump up and down, I stamp my feet. Sometimes I, pound my desk, or my bed, or grab my pillows, and start, because, well, there's so much history. Women have not been allowed to rage for generations. So yes, it might feel like a lot at first, but you'll notice as you do it, one, it'll come easier, two, you'll feel lighter. And no judgment around this. That guilt that you were talking about, Ruth Ann, I see your comment here. The ages, as far as tuning into your life, like I said earlier, if it's relevant to you, like, go with it.
I know.
Because it's not coincidence that we're here. I know, for instance, like 6 years old, I have a painting. That's actually in the other room. I have a painting, and it was a conversation with my 6-year-old self. That was the way I brought my 6-year-old, gave her a voice, was through a painting, because that was a key year for me. These years are, they're the key to kind of unlock a lot of this. Yes, we could go back to every year, but we don't need to. These are the key times. These are the key points. If that makes sense. Oh, Tanya disappeared.
Uh-oh.
Let me see. I'm going to tune in, Ruth Ann, to see if there are any other later ages that pop up for you.
Mm-hmm.
I get 62.
Yep.
Okay. Let me see. Anything else other than that? No. Okay. So 62 is the other one for you that pops up. Questions about that, Tanya?
I don't know. Zoom just kicked me out. Maybe my rage is too big for me to revisit with all of these. There, like, as soon as you start, like, 36 was the big rate, 30 was the marriage counseling, 28 was the community center, 19 was another, like, 90% of these are men related, but they are big. And as much as, like, great, Steve dumped me when I was pregnant for a car and he miscarried that one after he fucking abused me. And then I find out that he raped a lady that I used to talk to in the mall. You know what I mean? Like, these are all big things, but how much do we revisit them? And I understand the spiral, because how I'm even attending this versus how I used to, I would have ran, right? So I ran for a little bit, got off dating sites and stuff like that. But then I'm like, no, I'm going to admit to him, this is how I'm feeling and why. I'm going to reach out for help to work through it. I actually took a video, and I was so mad, and I was like, who the fuck do these people think they are? Like, how dare they? How dare him? How dare, so so the raging is probably good to a degree, and then I just don't quite know what to do with myself after that.
Okay. So one of the things that I want to say, start with your 6-year-old self. Don't start with the most recent, because like you said, it's cumulative. And we want to get to the root cause. So we want to go, in this case, to the earliest time, because that will be addressing like a huge chunk. So as you move through later years, the rage won't take up as much space. And how we respond to things later in life has a lot to do with how we learned how to respond to things prior to the age of 7.
Mm-hmm.
And that has a huge impact. So by addressing it from that point, the ripple effect into all the others is significant. As far as what to do after that, that's not a question to answer now. And the reason it's not a question to answer now is because all the space within you is being taken up, or a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it is being taken up by this rage. So as you start to clear this out, then opportunities and possibilities are going to show up. A level of clarity will show up that's not available to you currently. I often compare, I use this analogy a lot, if any of us have ever seen like the show on TV, The Hoarders, the people who have stuff stacked and stacked and stacked and stacked, that you can't even move around. Of course, if you try to find something, I mean, it's nearly impossible. That's how we are energetically when all of this stuff has stayed within us. So in this case, Tanya, your rage has stayed within you. So it's like an energetic hoarding. Now, you haven't done it intentionally. I'm not suggesting anything like that. But as you give your 6-year-old self, for instance, this opportunity to rage, because at 6, we don't have an opportunity as women to rage as often as we could rage, but certainly our 6-year-old self didn't. So by giving her a voice, again, it's like clearing out, like a huge room full of stuff. And now it's easier to move. It's easier to see what's going on, see what you're working with. So at that time, when you ask questions of yourself, the answers will come easier. So I just want to highlight something again. FLIA, fun, loving, intentional adventure, works differently for each of us. And there are absolutely times where the focus in any given moment and what we need in any given moment may be only one part. And while fun comes first in the acronym, it's not saying that's more important or it gets more priority than anything else. For me, love is absolutely, if I had to choose one, it's going to be love. What's loving to me? How can I be loving to myself in this? And what I'm getting, like kind of as a big, huge beacon, Tanya, is what's loving for you is giving yourself at these different points in your life the opportunity and the voice to rage, to let it out. Now, where fun might come in is like, you might decide like, okay, tomorrow you might get up and go, okay, I'm going to give my 6-year-old time. I'm going to give her her voice, and however long that takes, it might take a day or a few days or whatever the case might be. And then the loving thing might be, okay, it's time to take a break and have some fun. Just because there's more healing to do, just because it's important to us, doesn't mean it's loving to keep pushing it. Because frankly, it takes energy to heal. And it takes energy to give ourselves permission to express our emotions. The good news is, too, along with creating space, we're also how do I say this? It also starts to create a resource of energy we can tap into, because to move through like cluttered space, for instance, takes more energy than to move through clear space.
Mhm.
So, and again, the 6-year-old is a key component. You're going to have more energy, more resources available to you once you give your 6-year-old time and space to rage. And that's where we can go back to, again, go back to the acronym. All right. You know, for instance, we want to celebrate our 6-year-old. We want to acknowledge what our 6-year-old did. And how are we going to have fun with that?
Good question.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I can definitely see the value in it. And I'm definitely responding crazy person, and I'm this. So I've obviously been repressing quite a bit.
Well, and it doesn't surprise me that when you were like, oh, I see this at this age and that at that age and this at this age. And it's not unusual that some of the ages that pop up, there's not something specific that we think of. And I will say, if you find that there's an age that you're like, oh, I don't think of something specific, it could be like 1 year older, 1 year younger. It's not like written in stone. I will say that. All right, I'm going to tune in. All right, I get the way we're going to wrap up tonight is I'm going to go back to agreements.
Good.
We're going to reset the foundation, because who we are in this moment is different than who we were at 8:15.
Yes.
We cleared things. There's things coming to the surface. We've kind of stirred things up a bit. And what I'll say is better out than in.
Yes.
Much like if we ingest poison, you know, we've eaten poison, our body's going to get it out. This is energetic poison. We want to give our body an opportunity to get it out. So we're going to go back to agreements, reset a foundation for what comes up for us in these next days, to be able to move forward with, to be able to move forward with certainly love, and I'm getting with more ease than what our mind wants to tell us it can be. So let's see what those agreements are. Okay, if you could all repeat after me, I am safe.
I am
I
safe.
am safe.
Okay, I'm going to bring that into alignment. Okay, and if you could repeat again, I am safe.
I am
I'm
safe.
safe.
Okay, that's now in alignment. All right, and if you could repeat again, I am secure.
I am secure.
Okay, I'm going to bring that into alignment. I am secure.
I am secure.
Okay, that's now in alignment. I love myself unconditionally as I am.
I love
Love
myself
myself.
unconditionally as I
Okay, I'm going to
am.
bring that into alignment. I love myself unconditionally as I grow and change.
I love myself unconditionally as I grow and change.
Okay, I'm going to bring that into alignment. All right, the next one. I release all judgments.
I release all judgments.
Okay, I'm going to bring that into alignment.
That's a biggie.
I am free from my past. I am free from my past.
I am free from my past.
Okay, I want to bring that into alignment.
I am.
I am my most powerful healer.
I am my most powerful healer.
Okay, I'm going to bring that into alignment. All right, and I'm getting pointed back to emotions as well. So let me see what's here. Okay. The emotion that's popping up is anger. So I am getting that I can clear some of this out. It does no, I will say it does no way say it's all coming out with this, but it's to clear some of it. I'm going to do that now. Okay. All right. I will. All right, I'll remind everyone, we did work tonight. So things are coming up. You're probably already noticing some things. Be nice to yourself over these next days. If your body says it wants rest, be nice to yourself and give yourself rest. If you're, yeah, again, ask yourself what your body needs and treat yourself like your best friend. I'm just going to tune in and see if there's anything else that's wanting me to say. Okay. Any questions before we wrap up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one.
Shoot.
One of the things, I don't know if it's a habit or what you would call it. I tend to jump to conclusions.
Okay. So if I'm hearing the question in this, you're wondering what to do so you don't jump to conclusions as often?
Yeah. Now, sometimes I catch myself and I'll say, Ruth Ann, stop it.
Okay. I'm getting, Ruth Ann, that this goes back to your 6-year-old self. That
6 or 5. Yeah.
okay. Like I said,
Yeah.
it could be, yeah, it's not always, it can be a year before, a year after.
Yeah.
But it goes back to your child though, your inner child self. So what I'm getting is have a conversation with her.
Oh, yes. Okay. I can do that.
And I would add to, in talking to your younger self, how do I say this?
Okay.
You know, love her.
Yeah. She
Love.
just told me. She just
Okay.
told me.
Okay.
Thank
Okay, good. Um, yeah,
you.
that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why it's still coming up now, is
Yep.
because it's your younger self that like wants to be heard, needs to be heard, that needs the support. It's not your adult self.
No.
Okay, great question. Thank you.
Yeah. She's saying people go away.
Okay. Well, that's what came to me. It was a protective mechanism of some kind. Um, so, yeah, so over the next few days, have a conversation with her.
I will. Yeah. That was the year my father died.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
I will. Yeah. Yeah. I have a little talk with her, and I'll take her for a little treat or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Yep. She wants you to know that you're there for her.
Yeah.
Yep. That
Yeah.
she's loved and supported.
Yeah.
For sure.
She does. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other questions? Okay. As always, if something comes up over the next few days and you're like, what the hell is happening? You reach out to me. It takes me 2 seconds to check in. And I'd rather have you reach out than be stressed. Because of course, healing can be stressful enough. And yeah, sometimes things feel worse before they get better. So absolutely feel free to reach out. And oh, I always like to end this way. What's one thing that you're taking with you today that you did not come in with? That you're like, oh yeah, here's my nugget. And whoever wants to go first.
I can. It's permission to, well, I guess permission to rage, to bring out that power side of me versus the victim or whatever, like to lash out a little bit instead of holding everything in. Probably not the best thing to bring out. My daughter graduates tomorrow, so I'll be with all the in-laws, but maybe I'll bring it out Sunday.
You know, I have scheduled time for it. It may sound funny, but you know, I know Tanya, you and I met on Clubhouse. You know, I have been holding an anger conversation on Clubhouse for over a year. Why? Because I needed to learn to give myself permission and time and space to do it, and be around other people who could support me in doing that. And it is absolutely one room that I do. Well, I've been doing pretty much every week for a year and a half. It's had a huge benefit. So I know that you giving yourself space and time to do it, the benefits of that. And to be able to feel that internal strength come up as you let it out, that yeah, that level of empowerment, I mean, is tremendous. So yes, maybe not to the in-laws if you can, but certainly there's not a problem with scheduling it. Like I said, right now it's every Monday at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. Got 90 minutes to talk about anger and to express anger. And there's some of us who are there every single week because we know we've recognized how we've created space for other things to come in because of that. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence that I'm sharing FLIA now. I don't believe I could have shared it a year and a half ago or 3 years ago, or because I had too much anger myself. There was too much of that, like, still within me. The idea of being able to embrace fun and love, and you know, not fully like I am now. And it's because I've allowed myself the opportunities to let it out. Thank you for that, Tanya. Ruth Ann, anything that you're taking tonight?
Oh, yeah, several different things. Number one, I've missed these. I've missed these kinds of conversations. I've missed these. Is one, and also a reminder to see where, um, like around 62, what lingering anger might be there. Um, yeah, just to keep in touch with my little 5-year-old more often.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Very
he
cool.
needs that. Yeah, but I really have missed this.
Well, it's good to see you, certainly. And again, thank you, Tanya, for doing this. I got to make a note to myself because I want to hold a conversation about FLIA each week in this group, and I haven't scheduled it for next week. So I will do that tomorrow. So stay tuned for that to be in the calendar. I don't know that we'll do it exactly like this. I don't know, it'll be around health. Again, I'll show up and see what comes up. And go from there. So thank you both. Thank you for your time. It's good to see you both. And I'm excited for us and for each of you, because every time we take a step to take care of ourselves, to heal ourselves, it has a ripple effect to everybody else. So thank you for showing up and doing it for yourselves, but also for showing up and doing it for me. We change the world by doing this.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So thank you.
And we changed the world, and we also help raise the collective consciousness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you both for being a part of that. I appreciate and love you both.
Love you too.
All right. Have a wonderful evening until I see you again next time.
Oh yes, I'm
All right.
tomorrow morning's a fun time, so I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. Well, good. I hope you enjoy that. And Tanya, have fun at your daughter's graduation tomorrow.
Yes.
And I love you both. Mwah.
Mwah.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.